to religion versus relationship. Well, I told you, today's show is going to be simply amazing. But when you think about religion versus relationship, why do we even do this show? Because I feel that we need to start shining the light on having a true relationship with God and not just a religion. I remember so many times in growing up in my church, and I love my granddad. He was an amazing man of God. And I would hear some of the members say when we walking outside that I'm going to lay my religion down and I'm going to cuss you out, or I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I would always wonder, and I would say, Daddy, what does that mean? He said, oh, baby, just don't pay it no mind. But as a child, I really did not truly understand that when you say, I'm going to lay my religion down, what is religion? But as I got older, I learned to realize it was all about the relationship with God. Because my relationship with God tells me it's not how you do me, it's how I do you that matters to God. And that's when I knew I had a true relationship with God. And on today's show, we have an amazing man of God, man of faith, a man of integrity, a man of true leadership. That's the proud pastor of the Union Grove Church. But not only is he a proud pastor, he is an author of an amazing book. But he did something and transformed our community here in the big city of Memphis, that we saw everybody, not denominations, not colors, not culture, everybody was working together for the good of people. And I don't know about you, but I know that's a true relationship with God. So when I come back, I'm going to welcome on the set my dear friend, my dear brother, Pastor Charlie Caswell. You stay right there and we'll be right back with religion versus relationship.
When you can't do it all, do what you can. Caring for others. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Welcome back to Religion versus Relationship. And like I promised, I have my dear friend, my dear brother, Pastor Charlie Caswell. Welcome to the show.
All right. Thank you, sister. Tell the Lord thank you.
If anybody knows Pastor Charlie Caswell, that is his mantra. Amen. Tell the Lord thank you.
Yes. Amen.
I don't care what you got going on, what you got to do.
That keeps you motivated. In everything, give the Lord thanks.
Yes.
And that keeps me motivated, keep me going forward. Good, bad, or ugly, I'm going to tell the Lord thank you.
That he will do. So, Pastor, I'm so excited to have you here on the set today.
Yeah.
And we're talking about religion versus relationship.
Yeah.
And tell me what's your definition, if you had to differentiate, what is religion versus relationship in your own words?
I would say in part, religion to me is the tradition of man. It is what man has put in place to put in a status quo of a structure that they pretty much can control. But the relationship is what God has ordained before the foundation of the earth. And the understanding that he formed us while we was in our mother womb to be a prophet to the nations and ordained us. So it's he that we have that deserve all the honor and all the praise. And in the end, that's what it's all about, the relationship with God.
Absolutely. And that's when the show came about, I was just so honored to be the host of it, because I know for a fact that when you have a true relationship with God, your relationship really changes who you are.
Right.
Because you understand now you represent a higher power.
Right.
And how will you represent them?
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about all the blessings that God has allowed you to do, Pastor Caswell, I'm just ecstatic that we had a storm here in Memphis not long ago. And we watched, the world watched, Memphis watched, everybody watched, whether you was a Christian or a non-Christian, whether you was a Muslim or Baptist or Pentecostal, we all had the same vision, was to helping somebody, because you're the visionary, started something. Tell us a little about that. How did it get started? You already have stock. What made you want to transform our community?
Well, I would say this, and that May the 27th, 2017 here in Memphis, we had a pretty major storm to come through the city, and that so happened to be that Saturday night. On that Sunday, we came into church in the Fraser community, and our city as a whole was hit. Over 100 and some thousand people were without utilities for a number of days. In Fraser, and especially around my church, it was for 7 to 8 days. Our church got to church that Sunday morning, didn't have no lights on in the church, so no service was going on.
Yeah.
I told the congregation there, we going back home, cooking some hot dogs, getting some water, because we were going to have church in the community. We had trees, every block around our church, the trees were blocking the streets. Heard the ambulance couldn't get to the young girl who kicked in one of the windows where the tree split the house into two. So, I mean, we had a number of houses split right down the middle, and this girl cut her leg straight up the middle trying to kick in the window to get her mother out. And so those was the situations that we was dealing with. And so we was back there making sure that they had water, making sure that they had something to eat, and helping to get those seniors that we knew in the community out of those houses. I mean, it was a major situation. So it went viral, right, on social media. People saw it. And the next day I showed up, and the question was, when will we be back? I said, we'll be back in the morning. We stayed till 12 o'clock that night, came back that Monday morning, and the news showed up. And when Channel 3 showed up, basically they were sharing the story about what we was doing, and I mean, it just went, and people just knew that, hey, this is the hub. We had no utilities, but I say this often, I grew up in the projects of North Memphis and Dixon Home, and we was poor, you know, and so it was many days we didn't have utilities.
Trust me, I understand.
I can do a lot on that grill. I can cook, I can do a bunch of things, and because of that, we came into place to put the storm in, to support the efforts through the storm. And so with that, we just basically put the call to action out. Let me say this, we only had 2 canned goods, no water in the church.
Wow.
You know, because we weren't really set up as food pantry. We helped, and every now and then when people donate, we'll give out food, but we got the clothes closet and things like that. But today we are. Because, I mean, when the word went out, I seen the power of the 2 fish and 5 loaves, right? Is that when Jesus took what the boy had in his hand and he multiplied to feed 5,000. That week, we fed some 6,000 people in our community because the community came together. It was 5 days before government even showed up. So seeing the power of neighbors coming out, putting hot dogs from that they had in their refrigerator. One lady brought a big Simon and put it on the grill. Woo. Lady brought a big poke and said, feed my neighbors, feed. Yeah. And it was that type of movement, the power of the police department coming together. And so when you ask in part, how did we do it? Yeah. I say we was intentional about building relationships before the storm. So.
And let me put a pin there. What I heard you say was people came and you did everything that you knew in your power, but the all-knowing power man, he sent everything you needed to you, but you guys still had no power. Right. But you still had the heart to help somebody. Right. And so when I think about...
We had power.
Well, you had the Holy Ghost power.
Holy Ghost power.
Holy Ghost power, but you had no light. Right. And it was so funny when you said living in the projects. Of course, I lived in the projects, and it was times that I tell you, when the lights was off, we just knew how to survive.
Right.
You know, I remember, I still sometimes when I see the MLG&W truck when I'm in the neighborhoods, I be just cringing. I remember those days praying that they didn't come to our house that day. Right. You know, that we had to live by candles and run extension cord over. But you made... By your leadership, you caused people that probably never would have seen a Charlie Caswell, seen a Union Grove, or want to come to the heart of Frazier, where so many people say there's bad things in Frazier, but you had a great thing going on in Frazier.
Well, I would say this. I say this to the church and to many out there, is that was the perfect storm. When I say the perfect storm, it was God's opportunity to shine, right? I've seen so many social media posts saying, where the churches ain't doing that. And then I'm seeing people say, well, you must ain't seen what they doing at Union Grove. The church is doing something. And so when people started to see that, they came on board and they began to help. That morning, to have the police department show up that first day with us, they went to the stores, and the stores just say, give them everything. They start packing packs of hot dogs and stuff in the trunk of the police cars. We're having 4 or 5 cars pulling up with food and bread and everything, and then to have those police officers to help deliver that food to the communities. And when you talk about that, I was talking about the relationship that we was intentionally building is through an initiative that we do called the 7 Ps, working with the pastors, the police, the politicians, the parents, the principals, the proprietors and partners in our community. And to have our politicians, our school board commissioner, Stephanie Love, to show up that day. She made sandwiches, came in there and got on the team, said, Charlie, what is it that we need to do? She helped organize every apartment complex in our community and took teams to every one of those apartments, making sure that those people was fed and got what they needed. That's what it was all about, having a team effort, coming together, collective impact. It wasn't a me thing, it was a we thing.
I love it.
And because of that, I tell them, because this county mayor gave us the key to that's our key, right? That was the community coming together, working together to make sure that the people was taken care of. Kind of what we're seeing now in the Houston community, where the community is stepping up through the storm that they're going through, and our prayers are with them in Houston. But that's what it's all about. And if I can just say, sister, from that storm, the Lord gave me the storm.
My God.
So our storm team is the saving souls, transforming lives, outreach to the community, repairing families, ministering the gospel of Jesus Christ. We are the storm that God has called for such a time as this. If we be the storm won't be.
My God. So Pastor Caswell, and with all this, and shout out to you, Commissioner Love. I love you so much, Stephanie. I really do. Because she's really a girl that really comes from the community that hadn't forgotten the community.
Right.
And I see how you, as being such an amazing leader, you know how to pull all the politicians, the police officers, the pastors, everybody together. Because not only that, I saw you having electrical generators, and you had ice machines, and you know, and prior to, I was like, who footed that bill? And God gave you provision because you had vision.
You know, I say this to those who are out there. When you step up in a storm, I tell the church often that was the biggest 1 week, 7 days we was without power. That it went into the sun 7 days that the lights came back on. But knowing this, that we were the light from day one.
Yes, God.
And because we understood that, God gave us the biggest revival paid for. They said that when I was in the meeting with the females and basically looking at some of the numbers, you're talking about feeding almost 1,700 people a day. You're talking about almost $10,000 a day worth of food, and we didn't have it, but the people was coming in from all over the city. That was the biggest revival God paid for on his bill and not on ours.
And you know what I love about what you guys were doing, Charles, and nothing against any other organization, it wasn't even for the numbers.
Right.
You didn't, you know, before you service people, you didn't make them go through all the red tape.
Oh, right.
You met the need.
Right.
You know, I tell people when you're out in evangelism, you can't walk up to a hungry man and tell him about Jesus. Feed the need and then tell him about Jesus.
Right.
You know, go. I mean, and that's how. But what you did was you did not see there was a need in the community. You didn't say, "Well, fill this paper out. Let me see this. Let me see that."
Right.
You said, "Let me take care of the need."
Right.
And because of your heart was taking care of the need, God met every need that you had.
Right. And it is. You don't tell me how much you care until you show me how much
baby.
you care. And so the thing is that when the news asked me how long will y'all be out here, I said till the lights come back on.
My God.
And knowing that we were the light.
Yeah.
And God was shining through us through this opportunity to let them know that God is right there with them. And, you know, to see the faces of the people, I tell you, I don't want to tear up here, but it was many nights I stayed to 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, letting those women with the handicap chairs to plug into the truck generator. Shout out to Shelby County Mayor Luttrell, who sent that truck, that generator for us. For 7 days we had it where people can plug in their cell phones and everything. When I tell you it was no lights in our community, it was black dark. But to see them, they're not wanting to leave the community scared. Somebody may break into their homes and stuff for 4 and 5 days saying, hey, this is the first hot meal that I'm getting in days. And, you know, to have us there as a body was powerful for our community. And that's what it's all about. The community coming together, the people working together, and showing forth the glory of God. But we did that through intentional relationships with others. That collective impact work is important to any communities around the country. I don't care if you're a church next door to each other. Found a way that you can work together and come together. That's the only way we was able to do it. Other churches supporting this work. Yeah. And I shout out to all of them. If I start naming, I'm going to get in trouble because everybody stepped up in this city. When they was talking about churches wasn't doing nothing, you didn't see the ones that was writing checks, bringing water, and supporting this great work. And not only in our community, and we was out in North Memphis and other communities dropping off food and plates because they seen what we was doing in our communities.
Well, I tell you, Pastor Charlie Caswell, he has so much to say, you all. I want you to stay tuned because when I tell you this man is amazing, he is truly called by God. And then I want him to share with you all how you can get this started in your community. Stay tuned to Religion versus Relationship with yours truly, Telisa Franklin.
Amen.
fall in love with That's Love 2 Banquet Hall, located at 2988 Old Austin P, Memphis, Tennessee 38128. Now booking, receptions, meetings, prayer breakfasts, bridal showers, baby showers, book club meetings, or just a girls' night out. Fall in love with That's Love 2 Banquet Hall. Call or text 901-281-6337 today.
Welcome back to Religion versus Relationship. Of course, I'm here with my dear friend and brother, Pastor Charlie Caswell. Pastor Caswell, as we were talking, I'm just, once again, thank you for what you did for our community from May 27th on. But you have such a powerful track record of bringing people together. I don't care of all cultures, all faiths, bringing them together with the 7 Ps. How can someone that's watching right now and they say, you know what, I would love to see how I can implement that into my church, because of that, now your cupboards are overfull. You have more than enough food. You're able to service more people ongoing. So how can a person that's watching say, I want to implement that in my church? What do they need to do?
Well, I'm going to say, first off, start off without fear, prejudice, or ignorance. You know, you got to have an open mind. You got to be open to what God is doing in this season. You know, you never know who God is sending your way. You can't be caught up in this lives matter, that lives matter. You got to know that all lives, when it comes to God, we are one mankind sent by God to do a calling purpose. I don't put no man down for what they're doing, but I know that what God called me to do, you got to do it. And with that, I mean, you know, again, being intentional about building those relationships. Collective impact is the answer of the day. When you're able to build your capacity about working together, you may have a small church, but I'm telling you, the police department is not small. The principals in the schools are not small. The other pastors, all of those partnerships together can make anything happen. We've seen that firsthand. I want to shout out, no doubt, to my church and all of the church members who stood up during this storm and what they did. Because again, this was not I couldn't have never done it by myself. 6,000 people, I would have went crazy. And I drove some of them maybe crazy just by doing it, you know. Right. But the thing, I thank God, has been, again, discipling them and teaching our members and those in our community that it's about giving back. And we do that through our lifestyle. So you know, you see my social media pages every day, trying to give out a word, again, telling people daily to tell the Lord thank you. It's about encouraging and empowering and building up our community, giving people the affirmation. You have to do that in every relationship you build. That's the start to getting anything done.
Absolutely. And when you talk about that, not only do you talk about the 7 Ps, but you guys actually go out and help people with traumatic stress syndrome, because what I'm noticing that a lot of African Americans, our culture has been beat down and had all this negative stigmatization, but you're going in to shine a light and then teach people how to deal with it. Kind of talk a little about, because there are some signs that we need to understand, not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you.
You know, in our community, and I just start with myself, is that growing up in Dixon Home Projects, you know, I seen my best friend shot right in front of me. Another one, I walked out, his head blown off on the steps. Then having a gun put to my head and somebody pulling the trigger, and then it didn't go off, but when he turned and ran and shot back, it went off. So I grew up with anger in me and frustration, and then not knowing that anger was not normal. But coming out of my community, it was a normal behavior, right? We acted out, we did things, and you see it today, kids acting out in anger. Why? Because of adverse childhood trauma. And that adverse childhood experience that many have, that it talks about. And Dr. Athea Stewart with the University of Tennessee have helped train and equip our community and those in our community, especially on our staff and the work that we're doing to identify children and those in our community, family members who are dealing with this adverse childhood trauma. We're seeing cycle of behaviors because nothing was ever done with the previous generation. It talks about for every unit or every trauma experience, you have to have a certain units of services to break that cycle. Right. And you see in most of our community, being molested myself as a child, saying, oh, it's going to be all right, don't go on. And it's not all right. It's not all right.
And I'm glad you even brought that up, when we, like I was saying earlier, when I used to see the MLGNWB MLGNW truck, I remember our lights being turned off and praying they wouldn't come to our house, and hoping if it was a Friday they forgot us until Monday. But even down with the molestation, I went through a period of my life when I was brutally raped, and there was times like it'll be all right. It really wasn't all right. No. So then I had to, at age 19, go seek some help so I can talk out my frustration, so I won't be so bitter in life that I was able to get better. And so what happened to all of us is that we understood what happened, but we understood that we needed support and help. And that's what I see you doing as well. You're really helping and changing the generation, that because our religious tactics is say, it'll be all right, just you get over it. You don't get over it. But when you have a true relationship with God, the relationship with God teaches you, yes, you can overcome what happened to you. And the way you do it is through a true relationship with God and taking the principles and all the opportunities that He has given us to get help.
Well, it talks about in the Bible, it talks about you overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of the testimony. And then many times we don't want to tell our story. We don't want people to know our mess. And you're not knowing that your mess is a message. And God has given to you and allowed you to go through that to build up a people that He knew before the foundation of the earth that people was going to rise up. So I understand that we are called for such a time as this. So me using the message and the mess that I went through to be able to become a message that I can give back and do what I do in our community is because of what God did for me. And so when we understand that, then we become the storm. Then we become intentional about saving souls, transforming lives, outreach to the community, repairing family, ministering the gospel. We become intentional because we know we went through a storm to be the storm.
Absolutely.
See, the problem is when you go through and don't come through. When you go through something and stay there and don't come through, not knowing why you went through it, you're going to go through it again until you understand that cycle. And so I'm one that learned quick. And because I try to teach others to learn what you went through. Don't make that the same cycle over again. When you talk about the fact of making the community more aware, making this breaking the culture, it is important, pastors and police and politicians and parents and principals and proprietors, all of you out there listening, when you're dealing with a child, with a situation, it's not going to them and saying, boy, what's wrong with you? Girl, what's wrong? What happened to you? Found out it's a story behind everything.
Everything.
And we found that even working with some of our police officers, that now when they said that they used this tactic, some of them brought some kids to my church one time. A boy was shoplifting, needing some diapers, and said, what happened to you? Man, I don't have no money. I got 2 babies, and I'm a got a felony. I can't get a job. Well, man, Charlie Caswell, they got a baby store down here at the church. Brought him down, and that young man, we've been in his life for the last 3 years, mentoring him, and so on. He ain't been back in trouble. Why? Because the police could have arrested him, but they asked what happened to him.
And that's the key thing. So many times we get so caught up on what we see, and we see the face value, but all we have to do is crack open that person and find out what happened and meet the need and build a relationship, and then they'll understand, say, well, what make you do what you do for me is because of my relationship with God. I'm so glad you asked. And that's the opportunity to really be a true evangelist. And I am just ecstatic about the transformation that's taking place in the Fraser community. I'm ecstatic about the transformation that's taking place in the Mid-South community because of a Pastor Charlie Caswell that didn't walk away and said, the lights off today, we're not going to have church, go pray in your home. But you said, no, the lights are off, but we're going to let our light shine, and we're going to go to this community and make a difference. And as a result, you're seeing the results of it over and over and over, because people know that if there's ever been a person that may know God, they may not understand the difference of religion versus relationship, but they say know God, it has to be that man, because he sacrificed it all for our community.
Well, and
it wasn't color based, it wasn't gender based, it wasn't none of that. It was all about His glory and not your glory.
If we would have made it color based, a lot of people would have went hungry.
Absolutely.
And because we had Hispanics bringing food, we had whites bringing food, blacks. Everybody pitched in. Everybody. We had Duracell bring the whole truck and set up the truck on the lot. Gave away free. Shouts out to Duracell. Gave out Home Depots brought in truckloads of bottled water, Lowe's, and all of them that came in in and showed this community that they cared about them, that they love them. And many said it, we got people in this community that work at our stores. We cannot just sit back. We have to do something. And that's what it takes is, again, us all putting our hands on the plow and doing the work. And now, because of our leadership in doing that, this has become a regional work. Now, having Rotary International to partner with us, the Rotary Family Youth Initiative, that have now adopted the model of my book, which the book is How to Be More Visible, Vocal, and Valuable to Your Community, and now implementing that in all the 40 clubs throughout the northern Mississippi and Shelby County area. So again, God said your gift will make room for you and place you among great men, and I thank God for those who see the value in the work that we're doing to, again, be intentional about building relationships for the greater good of all mankind in our communities. And it's not just Fraser, it's Raleigh, Fraser, and North, it's Memphis as a whole, and people are seeing it and people are reaching out in a mighty way, and I look forward to sharing even how we can, we got a storm summit coming up.
Good. And please tell me about it so I can share with our viewers. They need to be at the Storm Summit.
And the commercial is going to be running on this show. So the Storm Summit that will be coming up is to be announced in October. But it's a 7-piece summit. We're going to have a pastor, leader, police, politician, parent, principal, who will talk about their roles and having a collective impact on the storm. And so that is a way that you can implement and be involved. Take everything we're going to have it packaged up to your community, that you can create a storm in your neighborhood. I'm talking about churches in the neighborhood around it being able to raise up leaders and those neighborhood captains and those people to be trained. Northwest Shelby County Rotary Club, shout out to the president, Lonnie Galway, who is leading the effort to help people go through training for CERT and other CERT is Community Emergency Response Team. That leadership of our Lonnie Galway, the president, helped us in getting trained and prepared, that we was ready when the storm comes.
Don't wait for the storm to come. Be ready.
Be ye ready. The word already told us. It told us that when you are called by God for a purpose, and you got to understand that situations are going to come at you. But when you ready, you stay calm. And God has taught us how to be calm through the storm because we was ready for it.
My God, my God. Pastor Charlie Caswell, there's so much more to talk to you about, but I tell you, as we conclude this show,
amen,
I want you to look in the camera, and I really want you to pray a prayer to the community leaders to step up and help each other, be each other's brother's keeper. Will you please pray for our community today? And
I will just say this to all our community leaders and everybody, the pastors and all that's listening today, is understand that situations are going to come your way. But we as leaders got to stay calm because the people are watching us. The Bible said that Jesus was on the boat and he told them, ye of little faith, why are you worrying about this? Peace be still, he spoke to the wind. You have to begin to tell situations in your community and around your surroundings to peace be still. Be calm, and I pray a spirit of calmness over you right now. Father God, in the name of Jesus, I pray and release calmness over leaders in our city, in our nation, and around the world. That God, that we may see the peace of your power and your love and your strength in our life, God. I just pray right now, anointing on them to work together with a collective impact way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Amen. I appreciate you so much. Listen, that was Pastor Charlie Caswell of the Union Grove Church here in the Memphis, Tennessee area. I am Telisa Franklin. This has been Religion versus Relationship.